あれ一人で座ってどうしたんです？迷子かな？
In the square mile, at the cafe Terrace on Queen Victoria Street. The cafe she worked at, Belle spoke to the small girl who had been sitting on a chair next to the terrace. It was unusual. Belle Webb had been working here for 2 years, but she had never seen a lost child before. Maybe in Soho or Hyde Park, but she hardly ever saw children alone in the square mile. When she did, it was always tough orphaned boys and girls. The so-called street children. But she didn't look like one of them. A single young girl. Belle thought she was a lost child. A girl sitting still with her knees together, looking at the sunlight in the sky.
迷子じゃないわ。
Elly, huh? She'd been sitting down, but when Belle spoke to her, she stood right up. Her face had been cute when she looked at the sky, but now it looked somehow annoyed.
どこの子かな？路地裏の子供って感じと違いますけど、でも結構服の感じがそうかも。シティの孤児さんかな？違うわ。じゃあお父さんとお母さんは一緒にシティへ来たんです？違うわ。じゃあお家はどこかな？家なんてないわ。じゃあやっぱりシティの孤児さん？でもあんまり見た顔じゃないですよね。違うわ。
No, she wasn't. That was her answer to everything. The girl shook her head at every question, giving only one answer.
それじゃあ、そうだ、名前。あなたの名前は何？エリー。エリーって言うんですね。それじゃあきっとエリザベスですね。綺麗な名前です。ママもそう言ってた。ふむふむ。じゃあそのママはどこにいるんです？そろそろお姉さんに教えてくださいな。エリー？
This time she shook her head silently. Belle was unsure what to do. The owner of the cafe wasn't there, and the rest of the staff was taking breaks since there was nothing to do. Belle loved talking to children, but she couldn't spend too much time on it, and if the child was lost, she had to do something about it. She'd heard rumors of a scary midder creature who kidnapped children.
どうしよう。
Belle thought hard.
ね
Elly spoke to her. Why?
え、なんです？
Maybe she's the girl that was followed by those shadowy midder creatures the other day. You know, the girl on the bridge?
あんた誰？私はベルですよ。ベルウェブ。ベルは今までに誰かを好きになったことある？
Well, the sudden question, and that was quite precautious of her to mention love.
もちろん。大人のレディーは恋の一つや二つ当然こなしていますとも。
But Belle Webb's expression darkened slightly with worry and anxiety. The evening man, Mr. Churchill, had stopped coming to the cafe almost a month ago. Belle wondered if he'd gone to a foreign country for business reasons, like he talked about before. That made her feel lonely.
でも一番好きな人は、最近お姿を見ないんですよね。どこかに行っちゃったみたいで。
Elly nodded. She muttered, still looking annoyed, with the sunlight in the corner of her eye.
大丈夫。思う人はきっと青い空の下にいる。毎度毎度。
Under the grey sky with several rays of white light, Canis and Henri. They'd been making a living delivering letters and carrying things for people. Now that chimney sweeping wasn't an option, they had only a few ways to make money. They got hungry but couldn't buy bread. That meant they had no choice but to pickpocket. But they didn't do that because the old policeman would get angry at them, so they did what they could to scrounge up what they needed. Yes, scrounge, just after the two of them looked at each other and nodded.
Oi! Keynes! Annie! いるか？
これ幸先がいいや。たかる相手が寄ってきたぜ。ラッキー。ラッキー？
The man with a cigarette in his mouth was, to the two children, easily manipulated, by which they meant he was a good business partner. He couldn't be called a gentleman by any stretch of the imagination. The man could have easily been mistaken for a gang member from the East London Docklands. Zack, They'd heard his surname, but couldn't remember it, one of their few adult friends. To Canis and Henri, there was only two kinds of people in London, friends and everyone else. Zack would buy bread or soup or give them money whenever they told him the location of certain formations hidden in the East End slums. The two children classified him as a friend, someone they could trust.
タバコみっけ
Canis saw the top of a new box of cigarettes sticking out of Zack's chest pocket. Without the slightest hesitation, he rushed forwards and slammed into him. Of course, Henri did the same thing.
お、いってえな。
サックだなんか食わせろフィッシュ&チップス一袋食わせろ食わせろあと今週分のタバコのおまけおくれどうせたっぷり溜まってんだろおくれ
What is he smoking or what?
おくれ
たく。
He smiled begrudgingly, but didn't dislike it. He removed the extra box stuck to his cigarette box and took out a few metal toys to give to the boy. Metal toys? A miniature model of a Cardathian central northern aerial fortress. It was very small and very well made. This wouldn't fill his stomach, but Canis smiled brightly. As a child, he couldn't resist the attraction of such things. The toys that came with cigarettes were luxury goods. Toys that come with cigarettes? What?
ありがとよなんだよ二つだけかよかよ
お前らいつも二人だろうが、三つもいらねえだろ。
いるんだよ三つこっちとらいつまでも二つじゃ満足しねえしねえ
なんでだよ。
Upon being asked directly, Canis didn't know what to say. This was dangerous. Even if Zack was a friend, he couldn't talk to adults about this.
惚れた女がいるの一人前に混ぜちゃってプレゼントなんて考えてるんだからほんとケインズには10年早いわよ
Maybe that Elly girl?
おい言うなよアンリー
おいおい本当か。なんだ面白そうだな。詳しく聞かせろよ。まさかケインズが色気づくとな。相手はどこの誰だ。
Or did he already reach puberty?
ダメだね何積まれたって言わねえぞロンドンっ子はダッチを売らねえんだからなエリーっていうの、
yes.
外国から密輸船に潜り込んでロンドンまで来たんだってさ新しい仲間
So she's from a different country?
自由だよアンリのバカザックの兄貴は味方でしょねえ兄貴
ああ、なんだかわからんが大丈夫だぞ。エリー。
Zack said that lightheartedly and shrugged his shoulders.
足取りはやや重かった
Mary walked around town. She was meant to be going to school. Her boots should have been the same weight as usual. Heavy boots, heavy feet. She still couldn't lift her sunken heart back up. The fifth meta creature, Redcap, and the troll it changed into. She'd felt heavy ever since then.
胸の使いが少しも取れない取れてくれない重いものが胸いっぱいに詰まって少しも消えようとしない息をするときにさえ胸の重さを感じる足は引きずってしまいそう
When she stopped thinking, that face came up in her mind. M's face in the darkness of her lodging house. Mr. Bram's last expression. Her chest was heavy, her chest hurt. She could tell that silent terror was filling it up. Had she caused deaths? She'd been doing what he said until now. She hadn't thought about what that caused. The possibility that someone got hurt. That they become hosts. That they became hosts. And then...
死ぬの死んだのこれまで6体の怪物を生んだ彼らきっと3人の誰かブラムさんを含めた誰あの日からブラムさんは姿を消したどこにもいない他の人もそうなの死精神の死道本当に死んでしまったという
She'd never once thought about it. Em had never told her, and she'd always been thinking about Charlie. About running away from the meta creature in front of her, about surviving, about her friend waking up.
神様私は間違っていますか誰かが死ぬというのなら
No reply came, of course, no answer. She heard no voice of God. This wasn't a confession booth. Yes, she still hadn't gone to church for a while, and a week's worth of homework from the college had piled up. She couldn't think about what happened to the hosts afterwards. Whenever she tried to think about such things, her body shook. She was assaulted by emotions other than the drags of the Black City. Weakness. Just feeling her own weakness made her unable to do anything. All she could do was jog to exercise her legs. Running along the Thames in the morning, people gave her strange looks when they saw her. She did still go to the Royal College. She'd avoided Angie for a few days, since she was worried Angie might see something on her face. The lessons wouldn't stay in her mind. She had been taking notes ever since Charlie fell asleep, but she couldn't understand any of them. Now she couldn't even do that. Her notebook was white.
ダメ。メアリーどうしたの？私は諦めないと決めたのに。これじゃダメよ。こんなに弱った気持ちではいけない。
She couldn't just stare vacantly all day. She had no way of knowing when her surroundings would turn into Sharnoth and when the monsters would appear. She couldn't run without a strong heart. She'd be swallowed up by the terror brought about by that Black City. She'd stopped having daydreams from scary stories ever since that day at the theater. In place of them, Mary occasionally felt as though the hazy Black City was a real thing. What had she seen there? Every time she woke up after escaping the Black City, all that was left was hazy memories. The first time she'd purposely tried not to remember, but after the second time she noticed she couldn't find anything in her memories, even if she looked. All that remained were fragments of vague memories and a resolve to keep running. Then,
ぐいっと袖の裾を引かれた感触。何かに引っかかった。そう思った途端、今度は袖ではなくて指先に感触。私は右手の指を握られていた。小さな誰かの手。何？誰？
It's Elly again. A small girl pulling her hand silently. Mary saw large, pretty eyes.
見たことのない子だった。誰だ？吸い寄せられそうになる大きな瞳。どこか不思議な輝きを感じる。なんだろう。不思議な子。そう私は思う。
She was surely a cute girl, Mary could tell from her face and big eyes. However, her expression hid that cuteness. She gazed at Mary with an unhappy, annoyed face.